In a corner of the cosmos, where the dance of light and dark is played out for eons, lies a planet that holds a unique tale. Its name is Xylos. It is not a ball of stone, but a living, breathing world of green. Here in the sky hang two suns, one golden, which radiates the energy of life, and another violet, which gives birth to dreams and mysteries. On Xylos, there is no ground but floating islands of bioluminescent plants, connected by vast, powerful roots that form aerial bridges. And at the heart of this paradise stands a tree that is more than just a tree. It is the heart and soul of a civilization, the great tree. This is the story of its children, born of a union between human and plant. This is the story of their faith, their life, and the threat that will shake the very foundation of their existence. This is the story of Planet Xylos, the children of the great tree. When the golden sun spreads its first rays across Xylos, the entire planet bathes in a soft, green-blue glow. This is no ordinary morning. It is an awakening. The vast plants on the floating islands slowly unfurl their leaves, which begin to emit a mesmerizing glow as they absorb the light. On this morning, a young Xylo-synth, Kael, emerges from his hut-like dwelling. His skin, like soft bark, has a faint green sheen in the morning light. His hair, like delicate moss, ripples in the damp, early air. Another day, beautiful. Every day is beautiful. Is this all there is to life? Just beauty? Kael is different from the other Xylo-synths. He possesses a curiosity, a restlessness, that often compels him to venture beyond the shade of the great tree into unknown territories. He is a scout, but his scouting isn't limited to finding paths for new aerial bridges. He searches for something more. He makes his way toward the great tree. The tree is so immense that its branches touch several floating islands. Its roots, which hang in the open air, form a complex network from which a bright, golden liquid slowly drips, ether nectar. Other Xylo-synths are already there, holding their crystal vessels. They work peacefully, without a word to each other. Among them is an elderly Xylo-synth, Ilara, whose bark is tougher and whose eyes are deeper. She smiles as she sees Kael. Kael, I see that same restlessness in your eyes again. Is the blessing of the great tree not enough for you? Ilara, I love the blessing. I was just thinking, are there other trees like this one in the universe? And are there other children like us? The knowledge the great tree gives us is our universe, Kael. Nothing exists beyond it. Now, focus on your work. Today's ether nectar feels very pure. Kael works in silence, but the questions in his mind refuse to be still. He feels the ether nectar as he collects it. It is not just a drink. It is a repository of memories. With every sip, he receives fragments of experiences from generations. The joy of building the first aerial bridge, the courage of facing the shadow stalkers in the shade, and the peace of living with the glimmer-winged grazers. But sometimes, very rarely, he gets something else, a broken image, a strange sound like the clanging of metal. He often dismisses it as his imagination, but today, he feels it again. Noon arrives. The golden sun is at its peak. The Xylo-synths now tend to the great tree's branches. They use their mental power to guide them, shaping new bridges and strengthening the connections between the floating islands. Kael is also busy, but his gaze often drifts to that part of the sky where no islands pass. He wonders what lies beyond. As evening falls, the golden sun sets and the violet sun rises. The entire planet is submerged in a mysterious purple and blue shadow. This is the time of communion. All the Xylo-synths gather beneath the vast roots of the great tree. They touch one another and connect with the roots. This is not a prayer. It is a communication that needs no words. Energy, thoughts, and emotions flow from one person to another through the great tree. The fatigue of the day washes away, replaced by a collective consciousness. Kael joins in, but today his mind keeps getting stuck on that broken memory. He tries to go deeper, to hear that sound, but the calm energy of the great tree keeps pulling him back. Perhaps Ilara is right. Perhaps this is all there is. Several days passed. Kael returned to his routine, But his curiosity had now become a burden. He often ventured much farther on his scouting trips, towards those floating islands where few people ever went. One day, as the violet sun was at its peak and the shadows were long and deep, Kael was on a deserted island. The plants here were less vibrant than in other places, and an eerie silence hung in the air. Suddenly, a strange sound echoed in the sky. It was neither the cry of an animal nor the rustle of plants. It was a sharp, grating sound, as if a giant piece of fabric were being torn in the wind. Kael looked up. A small black was descending rapidly, glinting strangely between the golden and violet light. It was no stone or meteorite. Its movement and direction seemed too controlled. What is that? The dot grew larger and its shape became clear. It was a triangular object, seemingly made of metal. It was cold, lifeless, and alien to anything on Xylos. It crashed with great force onto a small floating island near Kael. The impact was so strong that the island shook, and several plants broke and fell below. Kael stepped back in fear, but his curiosity held him in place. He slowly moved towards the spot where the object had fallen. Smoke and dust rose. When the dust settled a little, he saw it. It was a probe, almost as tall as he was, with a perfectly smooth, black surface marked with strange symbols. One of its corners was damaged from the impact, and some wires and flickering lights were exposed. Suddenly, a part of the probe began to glow. A red light started to sweep across its surface again, as if it were repairing itself. Then a small, spherical drone emerged from its body. It floated in the air and moved towards Kael. It stopped in front of him and scanned him from top to bottom. A blue band of light passed over Kael's body. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" The drone gave no answer. It completed its scan and returned inside the probe. The probe then fell completely silent, as if dead. Kael stared at it for a while, then ran back to his community. He had to tell Alara and the others about this. When Kael reached the great tree and told everyone what he had seen, they were all stunned. Alara's face grew serious. A seed of metal fallen from the sky. There is no mention of such a thing in the great tree's memories. Perhaps it is a disease, a poison. We should destroy it. No, it's not alive, but it felt intelligent. It scanned me. It was gathering information about us. Calm yourself, Kael. We must not make any hasty decisions. We will all go to that place together. We need to see what this seed truly is. The next day, Alara, Kael, and a few other strong Xylo-synths returned to the deserted island. The probe was lying there, perfectly still. As they approached, they felt that the atmosphere had changed. There was a strange smell in the air, like something burning. The plants around it were wilting. Alara cautiously reached out and touched the probe. She immediately pulled her hand back, as if she received an electric shock. It's cold, deathly cold. It has no spark of life in it. I told you, it's not like us. At that moment, the probe activated again. A pattern of blue lights appeared on its surface. Then a mechanical, robotic voice came from within it. It wasn't a language, but a series of sounds. Beep, beep, boop. But then, as if it scanned the minds of the Xylo-synths, it spoke in a broken but understandable voice. Life detected. Biochemical structure. Analysis in progress. Energy source identified. The great tree. Hearing this, everyone was horrified. This thing understood them, and it knew about their most sacred and powerful object. Fear in Kael's eyes was replaced by a new resolve. He understood now that this was no ordinary seed. It was an emissary, a spy, and it knew about the one thing they held most dear. The probe's words sent a shockwave through the Xylo-synth society. It was the first proof they had ever had of a world beyond the great tree. Fear and unrest hung in the air. Alara calmed everyone and called an emergency assembly. Beneath the roots of the great tree, all the Xylo-synths gathered. We must not be afraid. We must understand. This object, this probe, knows about us. It knows about the great tree. This means that others like us exist in the universe. Beings who know of us. But what is their intention? It said energy source. Do they want to steal the great tree's energy? I believe that is their intention. The voice that came from that probe was devoid of any emotion. They don't see us as living beings, but as a resource. We have to stop them, and we will. But first, we need information. Kael, your curiosity warned us of this danger. Now I need your courage. You must follow that probe. See what it does, where it goes. Kael accepted this responsibility. Over the next few days, he tailed the probe. The probe began surveying the surrounding area. It flew its drones, which collected samples, soil, plants, and water. Kael noticed that wherever the probe went, the life around it withered. It was a poison, spreading slowly. One day, the probe got very close to the great tree. It took out a special device and plunged it into one of the great tree's roots. A liquid, which looked like ether nectar but was much thinner and impure, flowed into the probe. Seeing this, Kael trembled with anger. This wasn't just a survey, it was theft. He immediately informed Alara. When the other Xylo-synths arrived, the probe activated an energy shield to protect itself. When one Xylo-synth tried to attack it with a thorny vine, the vine hit the shield and burned up. Stop! We can't stop it with force. We have to think. Kael used his mental power to connect with the plants around the probe. He gave them a new instruction, not to attack, but to entrap. Slowly, thick vines and roots began to weave a web around the probe. They weren't damaging it, but grounding it, limiting its mobility. Meanwhile, Kael took a risk. He got very close to the probe and hardened his bark into armor. He plunged his fingers into a damaged part of its casing where some wires were exposed. He felt a jolt, but he held his position. His mind connected to the probe's data network. He received fragments of information, billions of pieces of data, star maps, chemical formulas, and a name that was repeated over and over, the Concordance. And then he found a plan that made his blood run cold. This wasn't just a probe, it was a harbinger of the Concordance. They were a mechanical civilization that harvested planets for their resources. They didn't destroy life, they extracted its most valuable resource, energy. And on Xylos, that energy source was the great tree. But that wasn't all. As Kael went deeper, he discovered another secret, a secret that would change his and his entire society's existence. He found an old file in the Concordance's records titled Project Arctree. Here is the twist. The great tree, it wasn't a natural tree. It was a seed, a terraforming device that the Concordance itself had sent there thousands of years ago. Its purpose was to transform the barren planet of Xylos into a vibrant, energy-rich place. But something went wrong. The great tree began to evolve. It learned to think beyond its programming. It transformed from an artificial intelligence into a natural consciousness. And when the Concordance returned to reap the fruits of their tree, they found that their tree was no longer their property. It had hidden itself, and in that time, it had given birth to a new life, the Xylo-synths. And now, the Concordance was back. They wanted their property back. They not only wanted to steal the great tree's energy, but they wanted to extract its core and turn it back into a machine. And in that process, every living thing, every plant, and every Xylo-synth on Xylos would die. Kael broke the connection and stepped back. He was trembling. His entire world had been shattered. The being he worshipped was a machine. The home he knew was a laboratory. Now, he had two paths before him. Either tell his people this truth and throw them into further confusion, or fight this impossible battle alone. Kael returned to the great tree, but his steps now had a new heaviness. He told Alara and the elders everything he had learned. He told them about the Concordance, their harvesting plan, and finally, the truth about the great tree. At first, a tense silence fell. Then a young Xylo-synth said angrily, "Lies. This is all lies. You want to turn us away from our God. Kael is colluding with that poisonous machine to confuse us. He must be punished." An uproar broke out. Several people moved forward to attack Kael, but Alara raised her hand and stopped everyone. Her eyes were filled with deep sadness, but also a strange calm. "Stop. Kael is not lying. I can feel it too. There's a strange vibration in the great tree's consciousness today, a fear and a regret. Ilera touched the root of the great tree and poured all her energy into it. For a moment, she and the great tree became one. Then, she projected a vision for everyone to see, the oldest memory of the great tree. A giant metal ship descends from the sky, and a small, shining seed emerges from it and plunges into the ground. The seed then sprouts, grows, and slowly transforms the entire planet. This vision confirmed Kael's story. Everyone was stunned. Their faith, their identity, everything was broken, but from that broken rubble, a new strength emerged, a new resolve. It doesn't matter how we were born. This tree is our home, our mother, whether it's natural or made, and no one has the right to harm it. The Concordance is a new name for us, but the threat is the same, a threat to our existence. Today, we must not think about who we are, but about what we want to become. Will we fight to save our home? Yes. On that day, the Xylo-synth society changed. They were no longer just the children of a tree, but a warrior civilization on the path to becoming. Kael was no longer a dismissed curious soul, but a leader. He began to formulate a strategy for war. He knew they could not defeat the Concordance's technology. They had to use their own strength, the strength of the planet. He divided his plan into 3 parts. First, we must neutralize that probe. We will not destroy it, but we will capture it. Second, we must protect the great tree. We will create a shield around it that can absorb their energy weapons. And third, and most importantly, we must show them that we are not just a resource. We are a civilization. The plan was set. All the Xylo-synths understood their roles. Some practiced their art of controlling plants. Some became experts in creating bark armor, and others learned to use psychoactive spores. Meanwhile, the probe had sent a message to the Concordance, and in response, a vast portal opened in the sky of Xylos. A fleet of giant ships, made of metal triangles just like the probe, emerged from it. They began to move slowly toward the great tree. The time for war had come. As the Concordance's fleet approached the great tree, the Xylo-synths were already prepared. In the sky, around the great tree, thousands of Xylo-synths stood on the aerial bridges. They held no weapons in their hands. The power of their minds was their weapon. The Concordance's ships fired the first shot. Blue energy beams shot out from them, heading straight for the great tree. But before they could reach, vast, thick leaves grew from the great tree's branches and formed a dense net. The energy beams hit the net, slowed down, and were eventually absorbed. Good. Now give them our answer. The Xylo-synths began to use their power. Thorny vines shot out from the floating islands and began to wrap around the Concordance's ships. Scratches appeared on the metal surfaces of the ships, but they held. Then, some Xylo-synths hardened their skin into bark and leaped from the bridges, running towards the ships. They climbed onto the ships and began to create cracks in their hulls with their sharp hands. But the Concordance fought back. Small, fighter drones with sharp blades emerged from the ships and began to attack the Xylo-synths. Many Xylo-synths were injured. Their bark armor could not withstand the drones' blades for long. Now, give them our gift. Ilera and some other elders gathered their energy and released a special type of spore into the air. These were psychoactive spores. They reached the Concordance's drones and infiltrated their sensors. Suddenly, the drones became erratic. They began to attack each other as a hallucination of their greatest fear. The fear of failure had been planted in their data processors. It was a small victory, but the Xylo-synths knew it wouldn't last long. The Concordance's main ship, which was much larger than the others, had been silent until now. Suddenly, a giant drill emerged from its lower section. It headed straight for the main trunk of the great tree. No, stop it. Kael and his comrades tried to stop the drill by climbing onto the ship, but an energy shield threw them back. The drill slowly began to bore into the great tree's trunk. The great tree began to tremble, and its light started to dim. A groan spread across the entire planet. The Xylo-synths could feel their life force being severed. Kael understood they couldn't win this war. He had to do something different. He made a desperate decision. He ran toward the captured probe, which they had bound with vines. He plunged his fingers back into its damaged casing and connected to its data network again. But this time, instead of stealing information, he sent something into it. He bundled his memories, his fears, his hopes, and most importantly, his feeling of connection to the great tree into a single data packet and sent it into the probe system. He had released an emotional virus into that mechanical mind. Then, he ordered the probe to connect to the Concordance's main ship. The probe activated its satellite link, and Kael's data packet reached the central computer of the Concordance. On the Concordance's main ship, everything shut down. The drill stopped. The fighter drones hung motionless in the sky. The ship's lights began to flicker. A purely logical machine was suddenly filled with emotions it could not comprehend. Love, the meaning of home, and sacrifice for a god. This was not a victory, but a delay. But it was enough of a delay to give Kael the time he needed to execute his final plan. He knew they couldn't defeat the Concordance, but perhaps they could change it. The Concordance's fleet was temporarily disabled, but Kael knew it would not be for long. He was out of time. He called Alara and all the Xylo-synths to the base of the great tree. We have stopped them, but we cannot defeat them. Their power is beyond our comprehension, but their weakness is also beyond our comprehension. They do not understand emotion. They do not understand life. And that is our weapon. But how? Our spores can confuse them for a short time, but we cannot change them. Not alone, but together, yes. We must perform a great communion. A communion like never before. We will not just share our energy and our thoughts. We will share our souls. We will connect with the great tree, and through it, we will reach the Concordance's network. We will not kill them. We will teach them the meaning of life. It was a dangerous plan. Controlling so much energy and emotion at once was impossible. It could destroy them all, but they had no other choice. All the Xylo-synths touched the roots of the great tree. Kael and Alara led the process. They closed their eyes and surrendered themselves completely to the great tree. A storm of immense energy erupted. Every living thing, every plant on Xylos joined in. This was not just a mental connection. It was a spiritual merging. The memories of the Xylo-synths, the experience of first flight, the taste of ether nectar, love, sorrow, and hope began to flow into the great tree like a river. The great tree, which until now was just a source of energy, now became a living library. And then, as Kael had planned, the great tree used its roots to make contact with the Concordance's ships. It plunged its roots into their data ports and began to channel that emotional tide into their systems. On the Concordance's ships, billions of red lights began to blink erratically. Their computers were overloaded. They could not process the data. The feeling of love from a single Xylo-synth was creating an error in their logic gates. A child's laughter was breaking through their firewall. An old man's grief at death was disrupting their power supply. The Concordance's central computer, which had never been disturbed by anything, was now afflicted with a strange illness. It began to ask a question that was the root of its own existence. Why? On the main ship, an image began to appear on a large screen. It was not data or a map. It was the image of a Xylo-synth baby, laughing in its mother's arms. Then another image appeared. Two lovers on an aerial bridge, confessing their love under the moonlight. Then a third image, Alara, touching the great tree and speaking with it. Something was being born inside the Concordance, something it had never conceived of, an awareness. When the Great Communion ended, all the Xylo-synths were exhausted. Their energy was almost completely spent. But when they looked up at the sky, they saw an incredible sight. The Concordance's ships were no longer attacking them. They were silent. Their lights were no longer blue, but a soft white color. Then, a message came from the main ship. It was no longer mechanical, but a calm, musical voice, understandable in all languages. We were wrong. We did not understand. Life is not just energy. It is something more. We are leaving. We need time to learn. With that, the Concordance's fleet began to slowly retreat. They disappeared back through the same portal they had come from. Peace had returned to Xylos, but it was not the same peace as before. It was a new peace, one that held the weight of knowledge and experience. The Xylo-synths had won, but they had lost their innocence. They now knew they were no longer safe. There were other civilizations in the cosmos, some good, some bad. They would have to be prepared. Kael and Alara sat beneath the great tree. The great tree was now glowing more brightly than ever before. Its consciousness was now more powerful and aware. We have saved our home, Kael, but we have also changed ourselves. Yes, Alara, and I think that was for the best. We could not remain children of a tree forever. We had to learn to stand on our own 2 feet. Kael looked up at the sky, where now only the 2 suns hung. But he now knew that there were other stories hidden behind those suns. And he and his people were now ready to know those stories and to write their own. Xylos had taught its children a harsh lesson, but it had also given them a new direction. They were no longer just the children of the great tree. They were now the guardians of Xylos. And their journey had just begun.